As a kid, one of the shows that I used to watch religiously was Power Rangers. It was immediately on after Dragon Ball Z, which was my favorite, and although I didn't enjoy Power Rangers as much as DBZ, I still liked it a lot. That is until they summoned the Zords. Every time they went into these giant robots, instead of these awesome fight choreographies with flips and snappy punches and kicks, it turned into giant machines slowly punching each other. And perhaps because of this, I have developed an aversion to giant robots fighting. So I never got into Gundam, but it's becoming impossible to ignore. Bandai Namco is doing a huge Gundam push this year, investing $130 million into creating the Gundam metaverse. Their plan is to incorporate video games, videos, live music, and other media content in a metaverse that you access through a unique Bandai Namco ID. Now, I know what this sounds like, the metaverse. What are we doing? Crypto? NFTs? Probably not, although when it was announced back in March, it very much sounded like one of those announcements. Still, even without that side of the business, I don't know many gamers who are excited about the idea of a metaverse. That said, this investment is going to lead to more video games, and that's exciting. Even if these video games are being created in a context that will draw you into this world and potentially sell you some Gundam figures, because the whole service is supposed to be a fusion between physical and digital goods. You can purchase Gunpla through the platform. Gunpla are the Gundam models. It's basically Gundam plastic, Gunpla. And then the gunplay you have can be uploaded into the metaverse and you can use it to battle against other players. That's the whole pitch. We haven't seen it executed yet, but they clearly have a lot of ideas. We'll see how it turns out at the end. Video games though, that's my focus today. Because part of this push is to also launch an esports colony focusing on two of their free-to-play games. Gundam Evolution, which is still not out, and Battle Operation 2. With this big of an investment into this metaverse, the games that are surrounding that metaverse are also going to benefit. Think of any anime IP that you're passionate about. Think of a really big one. Something like Dragon Ball, Naruto, One Piece, Demon Slayer, My Hero. How many active games does your anime IP have? You can even count mobile games and everything. Off the top of my head, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, of the shows I mentioned, Dragon Ball probably has the most right now, with let's say 5 active games. Fighters is on its way out, but it's still having tournaments and has an upcoming patch. Xenoverse 2 is the game that refuses to die and is still getting DLC. Legends is their current mobile game, constantly getting updated. Kakarot, from the sounds of it, isn't done yet. There are rumors of a Bardock DLC coming out later this year. And Dragon Ball The Breakers is the next Dragon Ball game, and that is currently in development. That's pretty good. I'd say Dragon Ball is a healthy IP as far as games go, with 5 active games right now. Here's what Gundam has. In development and coming out soon are Gundam Evolution, which is a hero-based team first-person shooter, kind of like an Overwatch if you will. There's a beta coming up. SD Gundam Battle Alliance, which is an action RPG with this chibi art style. They are writing an alternate story, like the canon has been broken and you have to fix it, leading the world back into true history. Sounds a bit like the Xenoverse story if you ask me, but that's also coming out this year in August. There's Battle Operation 2, which I've mentioned. This is a free-to-play online multiplayer third-person shooter with a bunch of game modes, and this is one of the games that will be in that esports colony. Funny enough, that's not even the most recent Battle Operation. That would be Battle Operation Code Fairy, which came out at the end of 2021. They took the Battle Operation 2 engine and made a single-player game out of it that is very story-focused, full of anime scenes, in an attempt to attract new players into this universe. And then we have Mobile Suit Gundam Extreme vs Maxi Boost On, which came out back in 2016 and still has an active competitive community. Many call this the most competitive arena fighter out there. There are still official tournaments happening. PlayStation was doing monthly tournaments until March, and there are rumors of something big planned for Japan. That's 6 Gundam games already, more than I mentioned for Dragon Ball, and I haven't even gotten into the mobile games. Don't worry, I won't do it, but there are a couple out there. The Gundam push is huge and very obvious. It's almost impossible for anyone to say nowadays that I don't really like the Gundam games, because there's literally a game for everyone, covering all of these genres. Now, getting into Gundam, that's a whole other beast. As I've mentioned, I think giant robots fighting is kinda lame. That's not Gundam's fault. To me, that was the Power Rangers' fault. But thanks to that, I never really got into Gundam, or Transformers, or any show that has giant robots. Even Evangelion, which I think is a brilliant show, I could do without the giant robot fights. And I realize I'm in the minority here. Plenty of people like these shows, but that's just how I feel. What can I do? Regardless, as an anime channel, I feel like I should at least give it a shot. And then I looked at the episode list, and I think I finally understand how people feel when I tell them to watch finish One Piece. Because that's a lot. And maybe if I just sat down and played through Battle Operation Code Fairy, for example, that would be enough to get a taste of this universe. But it's hard to convince someone to play a game based on a franchise they have no affinity towards when that game is so story heavy. That's a big commitment. But to me, I think games can be enjoyed even if you don't know the source material. It's all up to how the game plays. And me being such a big fan of multiple arena fighters and competitive games, it sounded like Extreme vs Maxi Boost On was the game for me. But once again, that wasn't really the case. I wanted to make a video exploring Extreme Versus since so many people recommended. I was sure that I was gonna like that game, so I played it for about 3 hours, and I really didn't like it. And the reason is quite simple. It's very much a competitive arena fighter like people promised, but it's an arena fighter where neutral is king. And that's fine, I like neutral in most fighting games, but I didn't quite like the way movement felt. And if you don't like the way movement feels in such a neutral heavy game, then the whole thing kind of falls apart. I ended up canceling that video because if I were to make it, it would sound like I was going out of my way to criticize a game that is clearly beloved by a large community and has thrived for such a long time. I tried to stay positive and talk about things that I do like. Just being negative for the sake of being negative felt like it was a misguided video, so I ended up canceling the whole thing. I'd rather play and showcase the stuff that I do like, that I'm passionate about. You know what I don't like in fighting games? Playing against zoners. God, you gotta be so patient. Find the right opening so you can get in and play the game that you like. And if you make a mistake, it's back to zoning, back to being patient. And 90% of Extreme Versus is neutral and zoning. Anyway, I don't want to hate on the game, that's just why I personally didn't like it. So I never vibed with giant robots, which kept me from watching the show, and the one game I tried, I didn't like it. And that's why you've never seen Gundam on this channel before, but this year, Bandai is going nuts. That is impossible to ignore. At the end of last month, I was very happy when Bandai reached out to me and invited me to a Gundam event that is happening at the Anime Expo next month. This is the first time Bandai has ever invited me to anything at all. And in a way, it felt like an achievement, like the hard work that we put into this channel was finally being noticed. But of all things, they invited me to a Gundam event. I didn't think I was the right person to cover it, so I had to politely decline. I mean, there were a couple of other factors. I don't have my passport, and by the time I would get my passport, it would be too late to make the flight. So even if I was the right person for the job, I just couldn't go. And they understood, of course, but told me to keep an eye out for Gundam news last week. Because that's when the Gundam Game Fest happened, and they put out this huge breakdown of what Battle Alliance and Gundam Evolution are all about. Detailing gameplay systems, game modes, it's a very thorough breakdown full of information that I'd really like to have in the games I cover. And yet here I am waiting for Shinobi Striker DLC because we don't even have a release date. So every Thursday I have to turn on my PlayStation just to check if there was a patch. The grass does seem greener on the other side, and maybe covering Gundam games will be a good time, even if I know nothing about Gundam at all. Heck, it might even be an interesting perspective. Gundam games covered by a Gundam noob. Let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. But I guess you can call this my first attempt at getting into Gundam. This video right here. This required a lot of research of Gundam games, the business side of things. It's my way of dipping my toes into this universe. The next step is trying to get into the Gundam Evolution beta and trying out the game, even if I don't have any Gundam context behind it, because sometimes a good game can actually bring you into a series. There will be a character that you really like playing as and you'd love to know more about that character, the lore behind them. It used to happen to me all the time back when I played Dota of all things. So I hope I get into the beta. I just applied and we'll see where it goes from there. I enjoyed my fair share of Overwatch. If this plays anything like that, I'm sure it will be a good time. But anyway, Gundam is huge and Bandai is doing a big Gundam push this year. And I know a lot of you were probably unaware of this, so this felt like a video I had to make. Let me know if you'd like to see me covering upcoming Gundam games, even if it's coming from a complete Gundam noob. And also, if anyone else out there thinks that giant robots fighting was always kinda lame, speak up. I've always felt very alone in this take, but maybe I'm not the only one. And as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku and I'll see you next time. Bye!